In the spring of 1938, in a mill town outside Pittsburgh, a milkman named Harlan Beck laced his boots at 4 in the morning and stepped out into the frost. He earned $22 a week. He walked 11 miles before most men had opened their eyes. On the porch of the Kowalski family, he left 3 glass bottles and a note that simply read, "Paid Friday, don't you worry." He carried that family through the winter on credit that was never written down in any ledger. When Harlan finally hung up his wire basket in 1969, the town of Braddock counted what he had quietly done for them across 31 years. We'll get to that number. These are the men and women a whole generation grew up trusting. The kind your grandfather tipped a nickel and called by name. Subscribe, and let's bring them back one by one. One boy sat behind a bowling alley for 8 hours a night, dodging flying pins for pennies. One woman knew every voice in her town by ear because she personally connected every single phone call they made. And one man rolled into a village in a horse-drawn wagon, and for many families gave them the only photograph of themselves they would ever hold in their hands. These are the trades that vanished from Main Street America, the ones your father may have worked, the ones your mother may have called on. So let's count them down, one by one, from the top. Number 15, the milkman. In 1942, in Rochester, New York, a route man named Clarence Doyle drove a white Divco truck down the same 12 blocks he had walked for a decade. Before refrigerators were in every home, milk spoiled in a day. So Clarence left fresh glass bottles on the porch before dawn every single morning, 6 days a week. A quart of milk cost 15 cents. Cream, 22. He carried an empties basket and washed each bottle himself in the plant that evening. Housewives left him notes tucked under an empty 1 pint extra, buttermilk Thursday, thank you, Clarence. He never knocked. He never disturbed a sleeping child. He knew which porch boards creaked and which dogs would bark. The doorstep knew his footsteps before the sun did. Number 14, the Iceman. In 1935, in Boston's North End, a Sicilian immigrant named Vito Marconi hauled 40-pound blocks of ice up 4 flights of tenement stairs with a set of iron tongs slung over his shoulder. Every kitchen had a wooden ice box with a drip pan underneath and a card in the window that told Vito how many pounds the family needed that day. 25, 50, 75, or 100. A 25-pound block cost 15 cents. His shoulder was permanently calloused. Children on the block waited for the chips that flew from his pick, and he'd hand them a shard to suck on in July. When the electric refrigerator came, Vito's root died in less than 5 years. His shoulder never lost the callus. The ice melted. The memory did not. Number 13, the pin setter, or pin boy. In 1946, in a smoky bowling alley in Toledo, Ohio, a 13-year-old boy named Frankie Delgado crouched on a narrow shelf behind lane 4 and set the pins back up by hand over and over for 6 hours a night. He earned 2 cents a line. On a Good Friday, he'd clear $1.60. Flying wooden pins split his shins bloody. He learned to scoop the ball into the return, plant the pins in the spots by feel in the dim light, and jump back before the next throw came. Automatic pin setters killed the job by 1955. Frankie used that money for school books and a Schwinn bicycle. He called it hazard pay. His mother called it his tuition. If you remember the sound of a rotary phone and a woman's voice saying "number, please," this next one was hers. In 1950, over 40% of American phone calls still passed through a human being sitting at a switchboard. She heard your voice before your neighbor did. She knew when the doctor was needed and when the sheriff was called. She kept secrets she took to her grave. There was no privacy the way we mean it now, but there was something else. there was a person on the other end who knew your name. Number 12, the telephone switchboard operator. In 1948, in Muncie, Indiana, a woman named Eleanor Prescott plugged in every single call the whole town made from a wooden panel of 240 jacks. She worked a 9-hour shift for $32 a week. She spoke in a calm, even tone, "Number please, one moment," and she rerouted 160 calls an hour at her peak. When the fire bell rang, Eleanor was the one who called every farm on the party line. When Mrs. Halstead went into labor at 2 in the morning, Eleanor reached the doctor before the husband could get his boots on. The town ran through her hands. She never once said what she heard. Number 11, the elevator operator. In 1951, in the Book Cadillac Hotel in Detroit, a man named Otis Freeman ran the brass lever of a mahogany-paneled elevator 10 hours a day. He wore white gloves and a red uniform with gold buttons. He earned $41 a week plus tips. He called out every floor, mezzanine, 3, 5, going up, and he knew every regular by name, by hat, and by the floor they worked on. He could stop the car level with the marble hallway to within a quarter inch by feel alone. Automatic elevators with push buttons killed the trade by the early 60s. Otis kept his white gloves in a cedar drawer for the rest of his life. He'd earned the right to open his own doors. Number 10, the soda jerk. In 1949, behind the marble counter of Wexler's drugstore in Kansas City, a young man named Jimmy Cornelius mixed cherry cokes, chocolate malts, and lime phosphates by hand for a nickel apiece. A banana split cost 15 cents. He wore a paper cap and a white apron, and he could pull a lemon phosphate one-handed while sliding a malt down the counter with the other. He spoke his own language. A black cow was a root beer float, a shake one was a chocolate malt, and 81 was a glass of water. Jimmy worked 6 days a week for $18. The fountain closed in 1963 when the shopping mall opened. He kept the pewter scoop. The counter is gone. The taste is not. Number 9, the knife and scissors grinder. In 1937, in the Italian neighborhood of South Philadelphia, an old man named Salvatore Bruno pushed a whetstone cart down the cobblestones, ringing a small brass bell. Housewives came out with dull kitchen knives, sewing shears, and the barber's straight razors. He sharpened a paring knife for a nickel, a butcher blade for a dime, and a full set of shears for a quarter. He wore a leather apron scarred with sparks. He'd been a swordsmith in Palermo before the war. In America, he pushed a cart, but every kitchen on his street cut a tomato clean because of him. He didn't sell blades. He sold a second life for the ones you already owned. A 1954 survey by the Department of Commerce found that the average American household bought $58 worth of goods a year directly from a door-to-door salesman. Brushes, encyclopedias, vacuum cleaners, Bibles, life insurance. The front porch was a marketplace. A man in a suit and a felt hat could feed his family off the strength of his handshake and the shine of his shoes. He knocked on 80 doors to make one sale, and when he made it, he shook the hand of a stranger who by the end of the visit was buying something for a child not yet born. Number 8, the door-to-door salesman. In 1953, in a suburb of Dayton, Ohio, a Fuller Brush man named Raymond Kettle worked a route of 400 houses 6 days a week in a gray suit and polished shoes. He carried a leather sample case with hairbrushes, whisk brooms, floor waxes, and a free vegetable scrubber he handed to every housewife, whether she bought anything or not. A good hairbrush cost $1.60. A full home set, $11. Ray earned commission only. In a good month, he cleared $300. In a bad one, $40. He knew every wife's first name and every child's age. His free scrubber was the ticket in. His handshake was the sale. The porch was his office. The screen door, his ledger. Number 7, the telegraph operator. In 1944, in the Western Union office in Cheyenne, Wyoming, a man named Walter Reinhardt tapped out and decoded Morse code for 8 hours a day at 40 words a minute. He wore green celluloid sleeve guards and drank black coffee. When a War Department telegram came through, Walter knew before the family did whether a son had been killed, wounded, or was missing. He carried the yellow envelope himself to the door if the family lived nearby. He earned $48 a week. The dots and dashes came so fast, his ear translated them without thinking. Long-distance telephone killed the trade by the 60s. Walter never told anyone what was in the envelopes he delivered. He didn't need to. The neighbors saw his face. Number 6, the village blacksmith and farrier. In 1939, in the crossroads town of Millheim, Pennsylvania, a smith named Amos Hartzell shod the horses and forged the tools the whole community depended on. He charged 60 cents to shoe a horse, $1 to mend a plow, and $0.25 to sharpen an axe. The bellows breathed under his hand. The anvil rang 3 times when the shoe was true. Amos worked in a leather apron burned through in 6 places. Farmers paid him in eggs, cured ham, and cash when they had it. The tractor took his trade slowly, then all at once. When Amos closed the forge in 1961, the fire had been lit continuously for 44 years. He never once let it go out until the day he did. If you remember when a good pair of leather shoes lasted a family a decade, resoled, restitched, polished every Sunday night, then you remember a whole different relationship with the things you owned. A pair of Florsheims cost $12 in 1948. A workman earned $30 a week. That pair had to last. And it did. Because there was a man in every town whose whole living was making sure it did. Nothing was thrown away, everything was worth mending, and a man could feed his family on the work of keeping other men's shoes on their feet. Number 5, the cobbler. In 1947, in a narrow shop on Elm Street in Hartford, Connecticut, a cobbler named Giuseppe Finelli resoled shoes at a leather bench under a single yellow bulb. A full risole cost $1.25. A new heel, 30 cents. Stitching a split seam, a dime. Back when a good pair of shoes was resoled for years and never thrown away, Giuseppe kept a wall of finished pairs tagged with paper tickets. Mrs. Kowalski, Tuesday. Doc Bergman, Friday. He smelled of leather, wax, and pipe tobacco. He talked to the shoes while he worked. When rubber-soled factory shoes flooded the market in the 60s, his trade died in a decade. Giuseppe kept the bench. He said a man should die at his work, not at his kitchen table. Number 4, the lamplighter. In 1934, on the gas-lit streets of Beacon Hill in Boston, a man named Padraig O'Connell walked his route at dusk with a 9-foot brass pole and a small blue flame at its tip. He lit each cast-iron gas street lamp by hand, one by one, along a 2-mile loop. 84 lamps a night, 6 nights a week. At dawn, he walked the same route in reverse and snuffed them out. He earned $19 a week from the city. Children ran alongside him and called him Mr. O. Electric streetlights killed the trade block by block through the 30s. Padraig lit his last gas lamp on a November evening in 1946. He said a good night to it, the way he had for 22 years. Then he walked home in the dark. Number 3, the movie theater projectionist. In 1952, in the Rialto Theater in Savannah, Georgia, a projectionist named Elton Broussard threaded 35mm film through two carbon arc projectors in a cramped booth above the balcony. Each reel held 20 minutes of a picture. Elton watched for the small cue mark in the upper right corner of the screen, a single dot, and at the second mark, he switched projectors in a heartbeat so the audience never noticed. $28 a week. He changed 6 heavy reels a night. The carbon arcs burned so hot, they'd blister the skin. When the film jumped or the sound went off, the crowd knew who to blame. When it didn't, they never thought of him at all. That was the whole art of it. Number 2, the town tinsmith. In 1936, in the Ozark Hills of Arkansas, a tinsmith named Ellis Brannock handmade and mended the pots, pans, gutters, and roofing for everyone in his valley. He shaped tin from flat sheets with tin snips, a mallet, and a soldering iron heated in a coal fire. A new coffee pot cost 60 cents, a patched roof $3, a whole set of gutters for a farmhouse $8. He mended a leaky pan for a nickel and threw in the handle rivet for free. Ellis worked alone in a shed behind his house. When stamped aluminum from Pittsburgh flooded the general store in the 40s, his craft became a hobby. He kept mending pans anyway, for neighbors, for nothing. A tin pot patched with care outlasted 3 factory ones. Number 1, the traveling photographer. In 1931, in the middle of the Depression, a man named Ezra Coldwell rolled into small Kansas farm towns in a horse-drawn wagon painted with the words, "Portraits, $1." He set up a camera on a wooden tripod and a canvas backdrop in a field or beside a barn. For $1, a full day's wages for many, he took a family's photograph. Mother, father, children in their Sunday best. The baby held so he wouldn't blur. Ezra developed the plates in a tent that smelled of chemicals and mailed the prints back within the month. For thousands of families in the Dust Bowl years, that $1 bought the only photograph of themselves they would ever own. When the mother passed, when the son went to war, when the farm was lost, that picture was what remained. He didn't sell portraits. He sold proof that they had lived. Now back to Harlan Beck, the milkman from the Pennsylvania mill town where we began. When Harlan hung up his wire basket in 1969, the families of Chestnut Street counted what he had quietly carried them through. Across 31 years, he had extended credit, left extra bottles for sick children, and never once turned in a family for missed payment. The neighbors tallied it up. $14,200 of milk delivered on trust in a town where the mill had closed twice. Harlan had never asked for a dime of it back. Now you know what was on the porch. Which of these vanished trades did your father or grandfather work? Tell me below. Your memory is what keeps them alive. And subscribe. We've got more of them to bring back.